Hey there guys, and welcome back. So last night went ahead and got in my 2 hours since we missed a couple days there, as you can see 18 to 20, and everything kind of fell apart as I was finishing up the demo. So first off, one of those things may have just been a little beat up yesterday, but the first hour, 6 to 7, was coding pretty slowly, and then round about the start of the second hour, things broke. So, let's go over that. I think we will just go ahead and start with the big issue, which is over here. Not over there. Where is utils? There we go. Utils. The instanceFromJSON function. So, let me get you pushed over to VS Code, and we'll talk about it. So, I did say, looking at this again, and even this is not very good, we're probably just going to... There's a good possibility we're going to ditch something. I don't know what, but we might be ditching something at this point. Point being is, as I stated before, when we were looking at this code, I don't know if it was last episode before, I looked at it and I went, this does not look right. Something about the way this is laid out seems to make me think that it does not work. Now, this was code that I had gotten off of Stack Overflow really quick, just copy pasted really quick. I had forgotten to get the URL, and as it turns out, I had real difficulty finding the original post when I went back to check it. So the problem with this is that object.create does not actually run the constructor for the class. So right now we're doing that. We're running the constructor for the class, so we're calling new class, and then we're assigning the variables. Now there are more problems with that. That does not actually fix the issue. So the issue was, just to clarify, because you probably, or you may not have followed what I'm saying there. We have classes that, let's hop over to the big problem, the problem that actually broke everything, which is the colony of the sectors. So we have classes. These classes go and set variables in their constructor. Object.create does not actually run constructor, which means that, for example, we used to have timer, this.timer equals new timer here. So when I went to run the demo, the sectors did not have timers, which was very odd. I went, what? And they did not have timers, and they also did not have levels, and they also did not have rates. And I'm sitting there going, why? And that is because we don't define any of that stuff over here in colony.json. Right? All that stuff gets generated within the class itself. This has not been a problem for anything like items. Let's get the actual items.js. Items.js, for example. So over here, we have prototypes. Well, weapon types, not armor types, but item types. We have these prototypes that just have variables, and therefore we can load them from JSON because all these are already filled out. None of these are generated on the fly, and therefore when we create a new weapon, we actually are calling each and every single time create my weapon equals new weapon with the weapon type. So the weapon type does not actually assign anything aside from variables. So for all intents and purposes, this could actually be just an object. This could literally look like this. Weapon type equals, and then we could just put nulls in here, and then this.json would I'd have to clean up a little bit of this, but you get the idea. We could just make these objects, and then instanceFromJSON would fill this out exactly the same, and nobody would be able to tell the difference. So that's why it's flown under the radar for so long. And like I said, everything else that it would have broken, for example, weapons would have broken, items would have broken. None of that stuff actually breaks because we actually create them on the fly. Even meeples would be broken because they have timers, you know, but they're not broken because we've never actually loaded a meeple from JSON yet, which is something that would happen in the future. That's something we would want to be doing in the future, but that's not That's not something that's popped up yet. So now we know this is broken. And again, I've got a quick monkey patch right on there just to get us by for the moment. So we're initiating the class. We're assigning what variables we can. All the other variables, again, get default values in here. And then I am also on top of that, the second part of that is when we initialize this stuff. And where would I put that? Let me check the GitHub. It might be in IO. Where's GitHub? GitHub. Quick check. Yeah, all right. So for no, actually that's not correct. I guess I just did it in, where did I do it? Interesting. I actually can't remember where I did it, but oh, there it is. Yes. It is in the demo. So in the demo, which again does not help me for anything outside of the demo, it only helps in the demo. Sector.newTimer. So I added a new timer function. Again, this is just a monkey patch at this point, to the sector. So when we add the sector to the colony, it creates its own new timer because we are not creating a timer as you saw at time of creation. This timer is now undefined because we can't actually generate the timer properties at that point, which is a problem. So that is where we're at. So this stuff broke. It's going to, the demo will be functional after my next hour of well, at the latest at the end of my next hour of programming. It's one of those things. It most likely will be functional prior to that. It's actually looking halfway decent at this point by the time I got done, but that is stuff that has to be addressed for the future. Serializing and deserializing objects, we're not going to be able to simply call instance from JSON. We're going to have to serialize and deserialize differently, at least for some things. Some things that is working, but for other things it is not. So that was the big problem with this session that took up a lot of my time, was tracking down what the heck was going wrong, and then trying to come up really quick with a way to patch it back together to make it actually work. So other things that happened, we filled in some more words. So down here we had a third sector technically defined in colony.json. We had this guy right here, but I had never actually done much with it, so added in farmbots here to match that, and fixed a little error over in items. The transport, so back to there are some things that I started to implement and then never actually finished implementing. Transports is one of them, so had to add a couple of these things here. It was max reactor power got added up here, and then down here reactor power actually got added. So we had max reactor power defined, but no max reactor power parameter. There we go. We did not have the parameter in there, and then we did not have this attribute set on the object, even though we had this parameter already defined. So that was silly. Again, I had just slapped it together. We hadn't actually used it, so it hadn't been a problem. Over in IO, the thing that I remembered, I knew I did something in IO, and it was making sure that right here. So this was an error. So this was originally object.id, but sectors do not have IDs. So because they do not have an ID attribute, we got to go into colony.sectors and then get the index of the sector type, which is effectively its ID, because again, sectors are singletons, so it works. Next up, back to the colony. Let's look at some more changes over there. So minor change up here. Back to the farm bots. Let me scroll like this to be quicker. So back to farm bots. Finally added agricultural sector to the farm bots. Evidently I didn't have base meeples. I had talked about this over in the previous episode where we talked about how the meeple generation works from the residential sector. So evidently I had that, but had not actually done anything with it. So that is now fixed. Let's see. Added some more callbacks. So this list has expanded again. So we have bad timer, unlock added, no unlock. Actually, unlock added was in there. It just got moved down because we added no resources, it looks like. Yeah. So we added no resources, no unlock, and bad timer. So this is just feedback from the add sector, collect from sector, and collect resources, etc., etc., etc. Pay for upgrades. So paying for upgrades is another thing. Let's see. This is interesting. Let me take a quick look at this one. Unlock. Oh, okay. This right here, it looks like object values. Yeah, so it looks like I just rearranged this function a little bit, is what it looks like. So that is no big deal. Scrolling on back down. No unlocked up push. So this is at 174. 174. All right. So add sector. Okay. So in add sector, it looks like I added or adjusted some of this code. Okay, yeah. So back to the extra callbacks. So that's what I did here. I added the extra no unlock callback here for feedback. And then trigger sector down here. So back to I wasn't sure how we were going to be triggering sectors. So we have that now. So one of the things, just calling the sector callback, very simple. This dot sector is index of sector. So this is just a catch. If the timer is ready, if the timer is not ready, rather. So this is another catch just to make sure that we're calling something that is actually ready to be collected from. And then we use sector callbacks, which we talked about last time, to get the callback, provide it with the information that we discussed in, not last time, but a previous one, and we unfreeze the sector timer, assuming it's frozen. Next up, reset. Reset on timer, and this is line 496, 496. Okay, so this was going to be one of my fixes, one of my monkey patches. It's still here because it's still a useful thing. And basically, it freezes, clears all the cycles, clears ready, and then unfreezes. So it just gets the timer instance back to a quote-unquote clean slate. You know, it just clears everything it possibly can, and because these freezes are non-preserving, it will change, it will update the start time. So that is there. It's not actually being used, I don't believe. I ended up using it. So it is there just in case we need it at this point. Let's see. Okay, so down further when we're collecting resources. So 733. Okay, no, this is raised level. So again, this is another one of those instances where we added a little bit of code to enable us to use the no resources callback to indicate that the colony could not level up, or the sector rather could not level up, because it did not have enough resources. And let's see. Oh, likewise down here, added in sector expanded. This was actually sector upgraded. I think this was sector upgraded previously, and I changed it to sector expanded because that's more thematic, it's more flavorful. Now, granted, this is back end code, so nobody's actually going to see sector expanded, but we'll use sector expanded in the front end as well, just because I do think it is a better way of saying it. It's a more interesting, flavorful way of saying that the sector has been upgraded. And then also resources modified, because we obviously subtracted resources to upgrade. Now, technically speaking, I should be checking to see that we actually subtracted resources, but I'm assuming anytime you upgrade a sector, it is going to cost you something. That is the assumption at the moment. And then new timer. So back to, I mentioned this earlier, this is the function I added as a monkey patch to get a timer onto the sectors because they were not getting loaded in with timers. So just very quickly, you get a new start time, pass it to a new timer, and use that collection time. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So that is that, and the only thing we have left is just stuff that happened in the demo. So let me scroll to the top so we can go in order. We took sector from here. Obviously, as you can see, that is not being used right now because I didn't end up needing it, but we'll see whether or not I need it. Otherwise, I will obviously remove that import later on. Down at 40, flashes. Okay, so flashing resources. When you go to upgrade or when we add the shop to this demo, again, I'm assuming we're going to add the shop to this demo specifically. If you can't afford what you're trying to do, this will flash the resource that you're missing. So obviously we have the no resources event that we can now listen to. So we listen for the no resources event. We get the resources we need, resources.push. And then for each resource, we set up this animation right here, which text red, text unset. So it should go back to black in theory. Duration, half a second, and 3 iterations. So it blinks for a second and a half. Very simple, very straightforward, a lot easier than I thought it was going to be because honestly, I didn't know that animate was a function. One of these things, somehow I just always used set interval before, and this seems to be a lot more reasonable. So I was happy to find that one out. So we skip down to the sector area because that's the next area that we have stuff going on in. Let's see. This was just a typo here, so we can ignore that. Sector strings, so just like resource strings, because I'm going to have to keep on updating the words on the screen for the sectors, we went ahead and saved the sector strings. This again is identical to what we did before with the resource string, so I'm not going to spend any time going over it. And then obviously updated code down here to use sector strings. Let's see. Next up, added some callbacks right here. So back to this was the next thing I needed to do was add callbacks to allow you to level up and collect from sectors. So that got added. The update sector, which updates the GUI for the sector when it gets leveled up. Expanded when it gets expanded. And then some more back to flash resources and update sector, those callbacks that we were talking about before. Easy explanation. And finally, down here we have just the general GUI updates where we update the timer, the X out of 5,000 or whatever the collection timer happens to be on the screen for sectors. So that's very easy. Although we have this extra added bit because I don't know if you recall, because it was all the way at the end of the line here, but column 3 actually has a collection button and a timer display in the same table data cell. So we flick back and forth between those depending on whether or not the sector is ready to be collected from or not. So if timer is frozen, it gets frozen because it's ready to be collected from. I'm using frozen here. It could very well be is ready. That may be more reasonable, but that's not where we're at. And at that point, we change collection, put collection as block and timer as none, vice versa here. And obviously, the timer only gets updated when the timer is actually visible, so we don't run this extra code when it's not visible. Obviously, because that's what that phraseology means. And that is everything. Again, because of this screw up and because I was a little bit slow in the first hour, that's not quite as much as I would like to get done. But, it is what it is. Again, I'm rolling with the punches here. So, should be less than an hour left to get the demo at least functionable. And then we may consider going back and tackling instance to JSON right now. Otherwise, I will start working on the shop. And actually, before we do the shop, I probably will, I've been talking about this for a while now, but move timer out of, out of this colony.json and move it over to utils, because again, it is a generic object and therefore should not really be in colony.js. I think I said JSON just a second ago, .js. So that may very well happen just because I've warmed up to the idea more. And along those lines, maybe I do go ahead and see what it takes to get the weapon cooldown and charge up swapped over, and item cooldown swapped over to timers as well. So that is everything. Again, slightly shorter this episode because things happened that just required a bunch of time and did not actually give us forward progress, unfortunately. So that's where we're at. Otherwise, look forward to the next episode. Next episode, we will finally have the demo ready to be displayed, so that will be fun. And then possibly we'll have the skeleton framework for the shop as well. That will be nice. Beyond that, yep, I think that's it. Yeah, so beyond that, thank you guys for watching if you have been, and I hope you have a great and wonderful day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at in the world. And I'll catch you next time.